Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Quick Tips with Sean. Today I want to be talking about reverb and how to get around it and all its parameters to really teach you guys how to craft your perfect room tone. Alright, so let's dive right in. Today I want to be using Ableton 10, and for my example, I'm going to be using Ableton's Reverb. I think it's a really great reverb to learn and to use, professionally in any situation. It's just a really, really good reverb. So really quick, in my own words, I think reverb is just putting or crafting a room for your sounds to live in. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so what I got for this tutorial is basically like a C minor 7th chord, and I'm just going to be using that and then just messing around with the parameters so we can hear how the reverb is changing as I go over what the parameters do. I think that's the best way to do this tutorial. Cool. Alright, so let me put my headphones on so I can hear what's going on here. So cool. This is what I got. This little thing here. Pretty cool, yeah. All right. So the first things I want to do is just go over like the basic parameters. This is the stuff that's going to really just get you to where you are trying to go. The rest of the stuff is more like customizable things that you can really get in depth with. And if you really want to get into the reverb stuff, you can mess around with that. So I'm going to start off with this global quality section. Okay, so echo is what it's stocked at, and this is basically saying how much CPU you want the reverb to be using. Okay, the lower the CPU, the less quality the reverb is going to give you, and the more CPU, the better the quality. So if I drop this down, we got echo, mid, and high. Okay, echo sounds like this. Cool. Mid. Okay, a little bit more thick, a little more lush, and then high. Sounds a little bit more better. All right, cool. So I'm going to stay on high because I like my reverbs high quality. And the next thing is size right below it, okay? This is probably the most important parameter on a reverb because this is basically saying how big, how large, how far away the walls are in this room, okay? So right now it's at 100, and we've already heard what the room sounds like. Cool. So this would kind of be like a hall. Now, like I haven't really gotten to this yet, but decay time, I just want to bring it up a little bit. Like, let's do 2 seconds so we can really hear the room change in size when I do this. So 100. Okay. Now, if I go to 100, or let's go to 500. So now there's kind of like this delay almost type feel. So that's what you would like call like an arena or like some type of canyon or something. It's a really, really big space. Now, as we go down in value, we're gonna hear the walls close in on us until we get to like what you would call like a bathroom or really metallic plate sounding stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna go down. Let's go down to like 50. Okay, it's getting brighter, closer. Now let's get down to like 15. Okay, now the echoes are hitting us faster, right? The reverberations are hitting us quicker because the walls are closing in on us. So now let's go even further down to 3. Wow, now it's sounding more metallic-y, a little bit more bathroom sounding, right? Okay, there we go. That's a lot more metallic-y. And all the way down to the lowest value. Now you start hearing flutter. That's interesting. So that size parameter is really important. It's the characteristic of the room. It's the size of the room. And this is what you would see in presets. Like if you see church preset, a bathroom preset, plate preset, hall, arena. This is basically that parameter that's determining the size of the space that your sounds are going to live in. So I'm going to go back to around 100 or somewhere around there. Okay, that's fine. Now, decay time. We already kind of messed with it, but basically, this is just the time in which your reverb tail lasts for. So right now, the reverb tail is lasting for 2 seconds, 2 and 11 seconds. Now, if I go up to like 4, almost 5 seconds, it's a really long tail. Okay, so I'm going to go back down to 2-ish, but yeah, that's what that does. Stereo, this next parameter to the left here. Now, at 100, both headphones, or both sides, left and right, are creating a stereo image together. Okay, now if I go up to 120, Now, left and right are two reverbs independent from each other, which is very interesting. We can hear what that sounds like. You can't really hear the difference too much, but that's what it's doing. Okay, and if we go all the way down to 0, you're collapsing the stereo image down to mono. So it's now right down the middle, which is very weird. But if you want a mono reverb, there you go. You would never hear a mono reverb naturally. It's just impossible unless you had one ear in the middle of your forehead or something. But yeah, everything we hear in terms of reverb is always going to be stereo. You can double click any of these parameters to go back to nominal or the stock settings that it stays at, okay, or that it starts at. The next thing I want to talk about is pre-delay. So pre-delay is very basic, but I think it's a very missed parameter. I feel like a lot of people just dismiss it. I feel like they don't really dial it in as much as they can, and it's a very, very useful parameter. Basically, this is the pre-delay, so it's the delay time until it takes for the reverb to actually start. So, I mean, like right now, the reverb isn't starting until 2.50 milliseconds after the initial hit of the chord, right? So if I go all the way to 250 milliseconds, now we'll actually hear a delay. So there's that delay. Crazy. Now you can use this to your benefit. Right now my session's at 70 BPM. If I wanted to, I could figure out the milliseconds in which an eighth note happens at 70 BPMs. And then I can take that millisecond and I can dial it in to my pre-delay. And then my sound will hit, and then my reverb will happen an eighth note after. So you can get really cool and rhythmic with this stuff if you really wanted to. Eighth note, quarter note, whatever. One more thing. They say that 1 millisecond to 25 milliseconds is a natural pre-delay time. Anything after that, you're starting to get like an unnatural feel. This is stuff that you're not going to hear naturally, okay? I like to have it around 10 milliseconds or a little bit around, like somewhere around there, give or take. Because this is after the transient or after the initial hit. I like my initial hits, my initial transients to be a little bit more dry. Because it just cuts a little cleaner, and then the reverb can be after. It creates a cleaner effect. It's not so washy. And then I guess the next most basic parameter is dry and wet. The only thing that I can say about that is if you have it on a return track or some type of auxiliary track, then have it all the way up to 100. And then if you have it like I do now as an actual insert on a chain, then you can definitely just play around with the dry and wet, and it's all preference from there. I'm going to leave it a little higher than usual just because of the example. I want you guys to hear more of the reverb than anything else. And cool, let's get into some other stuff. So all those things I just went over with you guys are the basic stuff. You're going to find that in every single reverb, and it's going to get you it's going to get you to where you're pretty much wanting to be, okay? The next part I want to go over is the input processing section. So this is really cool. This is basically a filter of the sound before it jumps into all these other aspects of the reverb. So right now we have a pretty high cut. It's cutting at 830 hertz. So this is our sound now. Okay. Now, if I go all the way up to 18K, there's a lot more high end in there. Now, do we want that high end or not? That's totally up to you. This is music and it's all subjective. So you can definitely play around with this, but a very important thing to know is if you do not want it on, you can turn it off and it's going to save your CPU. There's also a low cut over here, so if you just want to take away some of that mud that sound might be giving inside the reverb, because sometimes reverberating low frequencies can just create mud, and you don't really want to do that all the time. Again, it's completely up to you guys, but it's there if you want it. So if I wanted to just cut all that low stuff out, there's only high reverb, right? Now we got the low reverb. Anyway, I'm going to take it off. The next thing we have is our modulation section. It says early reflections, but it's a spin. So it's a very interesting sounding thing. If I exaggerate it all the way to the top right here, full frequency, full amplitude, we get this sound. You hear that? Very, very interesting flutter type of thing. Now, if we go all the way down without any amplitude, it's not really there. So up and down is amplitude, and left and right is kind of like the frequency of how you're hitting it. Now, this is one of those things where I don't really use too often, just because I don't really like the sound of it. But if you can dial it into a pleasing thing, or if you want to create like a cool effect on your reverb, then this is what you want. Again, if you don't want to use it, turn it off. It's going to save CPU. Now, diffusion network. Diffusion network is a very important section because this is basically designing the sound of your room. So size was determining the size of your room, but now we have the sound of the room. So if you guys are like familiar with like some studio rooms, like they treat their rooms. So they have like diffusion on the walls, they have absorption, they have all these different things to treat the reflections that are bouncing around the room. So this is basically what that's doing. So diffusion is basically when a sound hits a wall, it's going to bounce exactly. It's gonna bounce off the wall, right? Now, if there's like, if say like the sound is hitting like a bookcase, now there's a bunch of uneven surfaces. The sound is actually going to scatter. It's not going to be one beam bouncing around. It's going to scatter because it hit an uneven place. And then it's going to go all over. So it's going to kind of even out the room. That's what diffusion is. But this is a mixture of diffusion, absorption, all kinds of things. Think of it as like the sound of the room. So right now it's stock to have this high cut. And again, if we go all the way up, we will hear more high-end stuff. Now, I like my stuff around 8. A little more dull. I like that. That's cool. And so that's the high section. You can turn on the low section and take off some of that low stuff. So I'm going to take it to like 200. I think that sounds nice. All right, next is chorus. So chorus is a chorus. They threw a chorus in this reverb. We all know what chorus is. If you don't, it's just a time-based effect. I can go over that in a different video. But again, all the way up, exaggerated, sounds like this. So it's kind of like the spin. It's just a little different. So you can definitely dial that in if you wish. If you don't want to use it at all, turn it off. It's going to save CPU. All right, so now let's get to these parameters on the right side here. So we got reflect and we got diffuse. So reflect is directly corresponding with early reflections. You can, whatever you decide to do with this section here, you can either amplify it by boosting it in dB, or you can cut it down or attenuate it in dB. And that's basically what that does. Diffuse is going to directly correspond with the diffusion network. So this is going to either amplify what I've done here, or it's going to attenuate what I've done here. So if I take it all the way down, we get no reverb. Because now there's no reflections around the room. The room has no sound because the diffusion network is the sound of the room. But if I take it all the way up, now you get an exaggerated version of what we want our room to sound like. So this is a very important knob. You can definitely mess around with this. I'm going to do like 2 dB just to give it some extra little flair there. All right, cool. Now let's move on to these two guys down here. So scale, they say scale is like a dark light type of thing. If you want your reverb to sound a little darker, it's higher values to achieve that. And if you want your sound to be a little bit more brighter, then it's lower values. So let's see what it sounds like all the way up. So that should sound darker than this. Okay, I can hear the brightness, yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to put that somewhere in the middle because I'm not exactly sure if I want it dark or bright. Now, density is basically exactly what you think it is. The higher it is, the more dense or full the reverb should be, and the lower the values, the thinner the reverb should be. So all the way thin. And then all the way thick. Interesting. It almost gives it like a delay time as well. All the way thin. Interesting. So I like it right there. Now this free section I'm going to go over last. Really cool thing, but I'm going to go over last. Shape directly corresponds with the spin as well. So this is just going to like, it's going to mess with the way that the spin tapers off. Okay, so let's exaggerate this thing again. So we get that gnarly ass sound. Now, if we go all the way up, this should be a little bit more gradual than this. Interesting. So like, again, this is like some real in-depth customization. Like if you just want to fine tune your reverb all the way, you can definitely get into this shape option. I don't really see myself ever using it too much. I just go for like a nice reverb, man. But if you want to use it, it's there. And that's the amazing part about this reverb. Okay, cool. And the last thing I believe is the freeze. So the freeze is basically just going to freeze your reverb. For example, I'm going to hit my spacebar, I'm going to start my chord, and then I'm going to push the freeze button when my reverb is at its strongest point. And there you go. And then unclick it to turn that off. Okay, now whenever you hit the freeze button, that's what it's going to capture. So, for example, now I captured that. And it's always going to be that forever. Now turn it off. Now, the next, you got some options underneath it. You got cut and flat. So flat, taking this off, is going to bypass the input processing section. Okay, mine is non-existent, so it's not really going to do anything, but that's good to know. And cut is going to cause an amplification of the reverb every time it passes back around. For example, Okay. So that's what cut does. Now the cool thing you could do with freeze, if you're kind of confused about it, it's really just an effect. I mean, I've used it a lot when I'm doing like down filters, or a little like if I want an extremely long tail of reverb, I can just hit that freeze button real quick and record this to another track, and then I can have that. And then I can do whatever I want to it. I can add it, and I put an auto pan, have it just doing like a cool little down filter effect, put some other cool stuff on it, and then I could either like get it and flip it around, have it like as an up filter, you know what I mean? And the same thing. It's just a cool way of getting a longer version of the reverb that you're already using with other instruments, so it sounds nice and similar in room tone. So yeah, I think that's it, guys. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope, like, after seeing this and watching this, what is we at? We're like almost at 19 minutes. No, I don't think that's right. I think because I was fucking up in the beginning section. Anyway, I think that's it, guys. If you found this video useful, awesome. I hope you're able to apply this to your future productions, and I hope that you feel a little bit more comfortable using a reverb. Especially Ableton's reverb, but remember that most reverbs are all going to be the same. They're all trying to accomplish the same exact thing. It's just the graphics and the name of the knobs might be a little different, but they're all going to be the same. If you can master one, you can master them all. All right, guys. Don't forget to like, and if you like my videos, please subscribe. That'll really help me out as well. And leave a comment, or any if you have any videos that you want me to do in the future, just leave a comment, let me know. That's all I got for you guys. All right, have a good one. Peace.